close. I'm going to run hard.
Pulls out again. Lawson with a blinding race stop.
Rudd just stuck it in too deep. Total domination again.
A touch coming down through the triangle.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning from Brooklyn, Michigan, and the Michigan International Speedway as we get ready for the first of two practices today for the Monster Energy Cup Series. Take a look at the playoff standings. Only 4 races remain in the regular season until the playoffs begin, and things definitely getting tighter at that 16th, 17th position. As a matter of fact, it can't get any tighter between Jimmy Johnson and Ryan Newman. Right now, the order is being determined by the best finish this year because neither of them have been to victory lane. They have the exact same amount of points. Alongside Dale Earnhardt Jr., Steve Letarte, Rick Allen with you for this morning. We watched the sunrise this morning, so a little bit earlier, cooler racetrack. Are we going to see speeds change any, or will they be trying to figure out what the balance is like in the car?
Well, I think wide open is wide open, so I'm not sure the cars are going to go any faster. I mean, I think really that's the question mark I have. In years past, this cooler racetrack really wouldn't have been that advantageous for anything. You would go out there and check your systems, maybe some travels, but not a lot about your car and the balance because you needed that hot, slick racetrack to find the edge. I'm not sure with this new package and running wide open, it doesn't change the aerodynamics of the car. So I think these teams actually may run a little more this morning, Junior, put themselves in position and understand how their car is in traffic.
Yeah, I think you can definitely get an understanding of what your car does in dirty air, but this is not ideal. This is not the conditions that we're going to have tomorrow. The drivers, the teams, they know that. They might not take this practice quite as seriously as they will the one later this afternoon. The car's going to feel great for the most part. You're not going to have any real issues that are going to crop up in the race, and they're pretty aware of that. But still, get out there, check things out. They're very critical as to how these cars are traveling. We've seen it all day yesterday, all year long, trying to get the car down close to the ground. So you can do those things today in this early practice and try some big-ticket items. Maybe you don't have the opportunity to test and try at other racetracks.
I know one thing. If I have a handling issue this morning, I'm really worried about the next practice. I'd be making some big changes.
Well, this is the first time we're going to see them in race trim. I mean, they have been focused solely on qualifying. They had qualifying yesterday, so this will be the first time they're getting a feel for what they're going to race.
Yeah, not impounded this weekend. So yesterday's practice was only for one lap. The tape on the grill as fast as you could go. Now you have to do it lap after lap.
The guy right in the middle of all of the chaos will be Marty Snyder down in the garage.
And the first car is cranked up. Kyle Busch heading out. Moment Kevin Harvick will head out here just now, as a matter of fact. And you guys are exactly right about this 8:30 a.m. practice here from Michigan. Traditionally, this is a practice that crew chiefs didn't put a lot of stock into. But, Steve, you said a very key word, wide open. Talking to a number of crew chiefs, because of this package being wide open in the race tomorrow as well, this practice actually has some relevance this year, maybe for the first time ever. So they'll learn a few things. And you guys also talked about this being the first time that cars are in the race setup, and that will be a big key in this practice session, giving everyone a good baseline. But this practice at 8:30 in the morning from Michigan going to be a little more useful than it's been in years past.
I'd be checking for pillow print. You know what that is, Rick? Pillow print? That's that kind of seams on the side of your driver's face, which means he came right from his motorhome to the race car. I want to make sure he's had at least one cup of coffee. It's 8:30 in the morning. Make sure you're ready for this first lap.
Head. I mean, I was
bedhead. There's a little bedhead.
Yeah,
but they hide that underneath a hat, so you got to go for the pillow print on the cheeks.
Okay.
I'm in the room. I'm here, right?
Wait, hey, makeup does an amazing thing with hiding that stuff.
He was good. He was good. He used to get there early. Or we would just skip the first little bit, because I'm not going to say I was a morning person either. Maybe let's go out and take 15.
There we go. That's the reality of it.
Take 15 minutes off this morning.
Denny Hamlin about to roll out. And you're seeing everyone kicking off this really beautiful morning here in Brooklyn, Michigan.
I mean, Rick, I know yesterday was qualifying, but I was shocked, Junior, at how little racetrack the drivers were using. I mean, this is a track that on corner exit, they chase it all the way up to the wall with grip issues. And yesterday, not only were they wide open, but they were leaving the corner. Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano, the two Penske cars, left turn 4, and I thought they were coming down pit road. I mean, they wrapped the bottom of the racetrack. I'm really interested to see here in race trim if they run it like an Indy. Are they really going to be around the bottom, even on corner exits?
Yeah, I mean, this practice is just so unlike what the race is going to be like. The track's got tons of grip. Early in the morning, anytime you go to a racetrack, it's like this at 8:30 in the morning. But we've said wide open about 20 times in this broadcast already. But we heard Joey Logano yesterday during qualifying talk about how they have a lot of off throttle. Now the leader may be close to wide open
In race trim, you mean?
Yes, in race trim.
I'm with you.
Now the leader out there out front may be pretty much close to wide open, but second on back, and especially 10th, 20th, those guys are way out of the gas in that dirty air, and that's what you want to get out there and work on if you can today.
This is something I like to see. We saw it at Chicago. We saw it again at Daytona. We saw it at a couple places when we came into the broadcast world. And it was at practice, groups of cars out there on the track together, which we hadn't normally seen. Normally you see one car out there trying to figure out the balance. But we have seen where groups of cars will go out and see how that air affects their car.
Yeah, you could go out by yourself, not for balance, but for travel, to make sure your car's not hitting the racetrack. That's, I think, all you're going to do by yourself. Maybe some fuel mileage stuff. But if you want to find out what it's going to race like tomorrow, you need to be in close proximity, and that's why you see this. Guys working the bottom of the racetrack. Actually, I think all these guys are going to probably come down pit road. This is another new thing we've seen more and more prevalent this season, is this pit road practice. You know, we've always done it, but you kind of did it when it was convenient. Now, I mean, look at this. This isn't one car. We're going to have, what, 5, 10, 20 cars. Chase Elliott's not only going to run pit road speed, he's going to stop in his box, accelerate out. I mean, look at this. It's the entire field.
Yeah. Well, the reason why is obviously these race cars don't have a speedometer. You can't go down pit road and look and say, okay, I'm at 55 miles per hour, whatever the pit road speed is. You have to use a tachometer, or you have to use lights on your dash, the digital dash. The computer, the teams set that computer with a program on their laptop, and they need to be checked. That needs to be checked. That needs to be made sure that it's maximized, that you're getting all the speed you can. So they were just going to run down, because sometimes before we would do this sort of a check on pit road, you'd get in the race and find out that they had set it incorrectly, that you weren't maximizing your pit road speed, or you were over. You get multiple speeding penalties in the same race. So this is just one of the things on the checklist they got to mark off before the race.
Planned by all the Hendrick teams, and then also I talked to Clint Boyer about that before. So you guys talk about a practice session where you may not learn a ton on the racetrack. Junior, this is why you take care of the little other things, right? So that's why they came down pit road to do this early in the session. The Hendrick car is going to do 3 or 4 runs down pit road. Make sure the drivers feel comfortable with that. Boyer told me this is why you do that in this kind of session. You take care of those little things you wouldn't normally think about or normally have time to take care of in an 8:30 a.m. practice.
And the other thing, NASCAR's computer is up and running, and they'll know if they were too fast and in what section they were too fast in. They have access to that to make sure that they're not speeding on pit road.
There you see Jimmy Johnson a moment ago with the helmet cam this weekend. Drivers, for the fans listening or watching at home, drivers, we have to ask them to wear this helmet. I'm sure they're curious as to how we pick in-car cameras, who wears the helmet cam. Some drivers don't prefer it, but you know, we try to ask them all, and each weekend it's a voluntary thing. I think that's really neat. Jimmy's done this, I think, 2 weeks in a row now.
Yeah, he's giving us a great shot.
I loved it when I got to watch in-car of my dad. It was like watching a guy in his office working. This is a 7-time champion. We're riding. We're seeing his point of view. One of the best that's ever done it.
Or you mentioned at the top of the show the playoff picture, and Jimmy Johnson currently tied for that first seat at the table, you know, the 16th position. Well, Jimmy's hoping for a little bit less eventful day here at Michigan. You see right here, all on pit road. First, it starts with heavy damage to the right front corner, and then coming down pit road a little bit later, he's going to pull out of line, try to get back up in line. That spot was filled. Now he has damage to the right rear quarter of the 48 car, and you know, when we talk about sustained speeds, while we aren't seeing the 200 miles per hour that we maybe have seen in the past here at Michigan, we're seeing sustained speeds in the 180s all the way around the racetrack. Aerodynamics as important as ever. 2 little issues on pit road really hurt his day. So the 48 hoping to leave all of those issues behind them, having a good points day. But this is pretty impressive right here. You mentioned we were riding on board. He has run the 11 down. He was about, what, 25 car lengths back. And the draft, you could see, really towed him up to the 11. Here's my question, though. He's there, now what? Can he find a way around? Is Denny going to just let him go? Or are we going to see anybody venture up the racetrack? This sticky stuff, as you go down on this end, you see to his right that really dark area. That's not just a shadow. That is sprayed sticky stuff. They talked about this end, 3 and 4, maybe being a little too high, but in 1 and 2, a few guys said, well, actually, either end, maybe they'll get up there and get in it.
I think that they absolutely will get in it during the race. Not a chance, I don't believe we'll see it in practice, especially this early, cool racetrack. Tons of grip down there. You had to lift off the throttle a little bit there. So that's what we're talking about. The one thing that you can learn in this practice is exactly what Jimmie Johnson just learned. How much throttle will he be able to run behind the car in front of him? How can he improve that? You want to be able to stay in the throttle as much as possible. So he's going to go to his team and say, hey, look. He's in clean air pretty much for the most part.
Yeah, he turned below him. That really worked for the 48.
That allowed him to run a little more throttle. Denny gave him that opportunity by running a different lane. Let's see what he does down here in turn 1 and 2. Had to lift a little bit last time through there. And that's what he can tell his team, hey, I got to get out of the gas a little bit. Let's try to figure out how to maximize that, get more throttle. See him lift just a bit. Now he gets a little tight, tried to carry too much throttle, had to come back off the gas a little bit there. He tried to run more throttle. Noticed he couldn't do it, started losing those a little bit. Come back off the gas. See the 22, Joey Logano, who dominated this race here early this year, right behind them guys, learning even more, being the third car in line.
Hey, Junior, so let me ask you a question. So we talked about maybe you won't learn as much in this 8:30 a.m. practice. So why not run the PJ1 in? Why not run up there? Yeah, it's slower. Who cares, right? If you can run that in and make it better for tomorrow, why not give it a run in this practice where you're going to learn a little less than you would in a normal session?
Yeah, I think you could. I think Larson, guys like that, would probably get up there and test that out. The idea, they have a machine, sort of a way to test the grip that they put up there when they spray that traction compound down. They are telling the drivers and us this weekend that it is extremely high in grip compared to the rest of the surface, more so than normal.
That's what I'm waiting to see right there. I want to know if he could get inside the 11. The 48 of Jimmie Johnson use that clean air to get to the inside of the 11. Now Joey Logano has to decide, who am I going to push? Who am I going to follow? Side by side in the corner. This is what you're going to see all day, Rick. It's going to be a great race. I'm telling you, it's not going to look like the spring race. These teams have brought back different style race cars. They have a new plan, and this is the unfortunate part. Jimmy, all that hard work, it's going to evaporate because Joey Logano is going to follow Denny Hamlin. Literally, it's like we're at Daytona. He's going to push the 11 by the 48.
Yeah, the 48 had that run, but when he pulls out, he gets all the downforce, all the drag as well. Not able to complete that pass.
So Steve made the comment, it's not going to be like the spring race. Well, the spring race was the 22 out front and everybody chasing him. Led a record 163 laps earlier. There's coffee with Kyle, and then there's the coffee in the morning with the Monster Energy Cup Series. Here, the morning session for the Cup Series, as you can put NASCAR coverage right in your fingertips, and in-car cameras, access with enhanced telemetry, ad-free experience. Just go to NASCAR.com/mobile. Thanks for joining us this morning for this practice as we're riding along with Clint Boyer. And look at this. This is what we were expecting now, is you've got cars side by side, nose to tail, trying to get a feel for what it's like running in race conditions.
It's 24 of William Byron, currently second on the speed charts. See him move up the racetrack. You can't follow the 14 directly. You have to kind of spread out. That goes back to what we were talking about with that sticky stuff. You know, we don't expect guys to drive up there by themselves, but at some point in the race tomorrow, you're going to say, I can't follow anymore. I got to go somewhere else. Maybe that's what we're going to see.
As long as he wants to run, I'm good with it. I think we're learning more being in traffic than any change I'm going to make first practice here.
That's the crew chief from 14. Talking to the spotter, probably on their side.
Look at that A-car lose the nose. Yeah, lose the nose so bad. So that's the problem, and that's why that option up there in the PJ1 is going to be good for the race. You can't follow a guy down in the corner that close. Like Daniel Hamlin did, you can't. You lose the nose, you get way too tight.
That's why Jimmy, to your point, he almost lifted before he had to.
All right,
anticipating he was going to have to get out of the gas.
So if you're the 8-car of Daniel Hamlin in the race, and you're that close entering, you maybe drive up to the PJ1, way out there in clean air by yourself to be able to maintain wide open throttle. If that guy on the bottom is in traffic, he's going to be lifting. You might be able to try to get to that right rear quarter panel, and then you have a great opportunity to take the position off the corner.
Marty, we saw the 8 have a little bit of a moment there on the track.
That would be Daniel Hemrick. And for that race team, obviously they had a great qualifying effort yesterday, but they will have to start at the back of the field. Steve will let you really explain why, but they have to have a functioning alternator on the car. That was the issue with both he and his teammate Austin Dillon. And for those guys, what happened, talked to Danny Stockman, the crew chief for Austin Dillon this morning. He said for years, people have not been using an alternator belt, in essence bypassing the alternator for qualifying, gives the engine a little more horsepower. But Steve, they didn't come with a functioning alternator. That's where NASCAR had an issue with what happened in qualifying yesterday. But Daniel Hemrick and Austin Dillon will have to start from the back of the field.
Yeah, Austin Dillon had qualified 7th, Daniel Hemrick 11th, and as Marty reported, both will lose their starting position. It's the letter of the law is what you have to understand. You have to have the component on the engine must be functioning, which means it must work. If you spin it, it should charge the battery. That doesn't mean you have to spin it. You could literally go in and cut the belt off and go qualify it, and you are legal. Some teams have a switch where you disconnect the charging side of the alternator. 100% legal again. But it must be a real alternator. For years, people ran dummy alternators. One simple rule NASCAR added to just cut down on the cost. Like, why do we have these dummy parts? It's silly. You can't run them. You have to run a real alternator. RCR chose to run a dummy one. I believe that the decision was made perhaps not knowing the rule. And I'm not picking on them. The rule book is very thick. It's easy to lose a rule here or there. I don't think there was this intent. That's why Danny Stockman, I think, is a little frustrated because other guys that he qualified against, I guarantee, didn't have the belt on, which was the same advantage. But why would you that advantage isn't against the rules.
And explain to me why you'd want a dummy alternator.
Well, the simple fact is that it takes power to turn. We've seen a lot of power steering failures. It takes power to turn the water pump, power steering, and the alternator. So if it's a dummy alternator, it's not taking any power. And with 550 horsepower, especially qualifying for one lap, you want all the power going to the rear wheels.
Weight as well.
It would be some weight as well. You could have a much lighter alternator, to your point. And that's that reason. I just don't think they knew the rule. I mean, if they knew the rule, then that's an aggressive risk for something they could have got a lot of the game by just cutting the belt. Either way, they'll be starting from the back of the pack. So they'll be busy early.
You used the word risk. William Byron and Kyle Busch a week ago got into it. Maybe a little too much risk too early for William Byron and Kyle Busch. He was disappointed with this early in the race. William Byron, he said he came down on him when he went into turn 1 there, and so he was a little frustrated. Let him know it as they were going through the inner loop or bus stop there right in front of Junior from Watkins Glen. And then later, William Byron decided he'd get payback, but maybe he's still in the learning process. You saw the tires lock up there on the 18 right before the 24 got to him.
Yeah, so listening to Kyle Busch's comments this weekend, he feels like that the 24 Byron could have cut him a little bit of a break that early in the race. He named a couple of instances throughout the race where drivers did that going down into turn 1. Even William himself did it in the race to other drivers. He just felt like, man, that was unnecessary. It put me in a bad position, caused me to spin out. And through the inner loop, sending William in there a little deep, there's a little debris on the grill. Not a big deal for William. It's just a message. We were coming toward the end of the stage. He was going to be fine. And so the caution comes out for the end of the stage. He gets, William gets the comment from Chad Canals to go up there and say, hey man, if you're not hitting that 18 when you come by here, we got problems.
Right.
And he pressured William, I feel, into making that bad decision to go up there and destroy his race car. And the 18 of Kyle Busch, as savvy and smart and veteran as he is, knew it was coming. Slams on the brakes. There's no front bumper on these cars. There's nothing up there that's going to. You can't bump like
it. Can only do damage.
It destroyed the front of that car, and that happened. We see that time and time again, how the front bumpers get destroyed so easily at Martinsville and all kinds of places. And so I think that William learned a lot there. Chad learned a lot there. It's a pretty dynamic and dramatic moment in the race. But William had a pretty reasonable fast race car. We saw him run great at Sonoma. Yeah. He had a great fast race car, and that was the end of that for the day.
Yeah, it escalated because, to your point, Kyle's message to William was pretty well calculated. It was only a lap and a half to it really wasn't going to hurt the 24. He sent him in about the one spot at Watkins Glen you can send him without having any damage. Marty.
Well, and to give you a little perspective from the William Byron side, remember he started on the front row last week and was up front. And when Denny Hamlin passed him, Chad Knaus was upset with the way that pass happened. He said we lost 3 seconds, and that was on lap 2, I believe. So before the Kyle Busch incident happened. So he said, listen, if you let a car go by you, you got to be more aggressive. We can't lose 3 seconds. The next lap, then that's when Kyle Busch tries to pass him. So really, that may have been the start of him maybe racing the 18 a little more aggressively, even though William felt like he left him enough room. Chad felt like the pass before that, he gave up too much time, wanted him to race guys a little more aggressively, and then the Kyle Busch incident happened after that, and then things cascaded from there with a 2014.
And some of it, I understand Chad's frustration, but I actually saw it, Dale, when you were out of the car with a concussion and Regan Smith was in there, and it was actually Kyle Busch. We were running into the top 5 at Charlotte, and Kyle drove in on our door, and there's no way he would have done that if you were in the car. Yeah. But these drivers do not race everyone the same, and I'm sure people push William around because he's a young race car driver, but as much as Chad wants to help, that has to be figured out between race car drivers. I'm not sure as a crew chief, I really understand what happens on the racetrack. Only the drivers really know.
And that wasn't the only issue with Kyle Busch from a week ago. He had a little run-in with Bubba Wallace. We'll talk about more of that when we come back. More practice from Michigan coming up. Action picking up here in this first practice of the day for the Monster Energy Cup Series. Quite a few cars not really working together, but as a group trying to figure out what they've got.
And you see some guys further back in that line, Logano and further back, you see some of those guys, the air being so turbulent and dirty, they're driving up in the PJ1 because that's where their cars are going. Right. They're getting tight, and the cars are ending up in the PJ1. Look at the 11, Denny Hamlin. Oh, boy. Yeah. Had a little moment there, decided to get up out of that mess. But all these guys, especially back in the back half of this group, are learning the most about, the struggles that they're going to face in dirty air come tomorrow. Look at Kyle Larson with the right sides.
Yeah, and Eric Jones right behind him. I think he liked the fact that Kyle Larson. So here we're riding with Eric Jones, Kyle Larson right in front. You just pointed how high the 42 got. The 20 of Eric Jones loved it because it gave him the bottom and the air on the nose of the car. We're going to see down here.
Oh, big moment there for the 42. Oh, boy. That's a huge moment inside the car. Definitely got his attention.
And that's what Eric Jones wants to see. Thank you. I mean, today it's just practice, but tomorrow that's a free spot. One he didn't have to work for. He got to clear him, no problem.
That is the problem with if you're the car in front, 42 Kyle Larson, if you go to the PJ1, well, the guy behind you just goes to the inside of you. Likely clears you, or at least gets beside you. And side drafting then becomes a problem. So I think that PJ1 will be an opportunity for the guys that are further back in the field.
That moment on tape here for everybody to see. Watch this wiggle.
Oh, man. That was sideways getting into the corner. I know it looks like a very small moment from the outside, but inside the car, that is huge.
And we have seen Kyle Larson have to go to backup cars because he said he made a mistake. I was watching this, and as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, if that's me in that race car, I would have run into the wall. I mean, I couldn't have saved that, but
I agree.
So talented.
Yeah. Well, you're looking for affirmation because I agree.
I mean, that. We talk about that and we say, wow, what a moment. And a lot of people at home are going, well, he just got a little bit sideways. No, not at 185 miles an hour, a little bit sideways. You're slamming into the wall if you're not as talented as a Kyle Larson.
Well, he just hit a little patch of black ice, basically. Across a little patch of black ice at 190. I like to watch this right here. He's coming in now, but you saw both ends of the racetrack getting out of the gas before he had that moment, kind of making sure their car didn't overrun the tires. But it's fascinating. I mean, for years, Michigan was get your stuff driving good, and you worry about your car. And now Michigan is positioning, its strategy, both on the pit box, but also behind the wheel of where you position your car. It's just a different type race. You see right here, 3 wide at the front with Matty D at the bottom. I think that's the 19th Truex in the middle. Marty.
Hey, CD, I like this approach for Alan Gustafson and Chase Elliott. You see him back there in the Napa car, third in line there for the 9. And, their approach was to go out by themselves on the first run, get a feel for where their car was, and then go find a pack. I think that's one thing that's been a little surprising to the teams and drivers. They're learning a lot more in this draft. We heard Mike Bugaravich say that on the radio a moment ago. We're learning a lot in the draft. So, Junior, I'm wondering, even though it's early, as we've talked about, this draft seems to be providing data that these teams can use for tomorrow's race.
Yeah, I mean, this is race conditions, as close as you're probably going to get. And there's a lot of cars out here. Everybody, I think, that's sitting in the garage, at least the drivers, are watching this on TV and going, man, I'd love to be out there. I want to get out there and get behind these guys and see what my car will do, won't do. what I need to work on.
And this is interesting. Well, we see the 12 pull down to the inside and say, I'm out of the way here. But you had Jimmy Johnson and Ryan Blaney running nose to tail there for a moment.
That's how it works. If you have an issue with somebody on the racetrack, you can guarantee that your bus is going to be next to it in the bus lot, that you're going to ride
together in the garage.
Parked next together in the garage. You're going to ride in the same pickup truck pre-race. It's the racing world trying to say, we're going to make this as awkward as possible for you two.
And so Jimmy and Blaney haven't spoken, but their buses are side by side in the driver's owner lot, ironically. I imagine at some point this weekend before the race they'll have some conversation.
We would assume. So here's Jimmy right here following 3 cars. This is really what it's all about. He has to find a position. So look, he's going to start in the middle, go to the bottom, fighting the wheel a little bit, searching for that air.
This is perfect. This is the perfect view right here to really see what Joey's fighting. He drove down to the inside of that 4 car. Couldn't stay full throttle, couldn't stand the gas. 4 car beats him off the corner up high.
So take me through the decision-making of Jimmy right now. What's he thinking on the corner?
He doesn't want to go where the 22 goes. He's going to go to the bottom. He waits for a moment, just a split second to see, okay, what's the 22 doing? Bottom, middle, he going to the middle, I'm going to the bottom. Now I'm alongside of him. Now I'm hoping that whoever's behind me is going to try to help me. Get a little side draft there to 22 lifts. You see him in the mirror. 22's coming in the garage. Jimmy's all clear. Now Jimmy wants to take this momentum he has. He's got about a 10 car length gap back up there to Kevin Harvick. Wants to slowly run him down.
That's what I'm waiting to see. So in this package, I believe this gap will close. Yeah, this is the advantage. In years past, Jimmy right now wouldn't have a chance of catching Harvick because he would be in that dirty air even way back there. But now the draft, I think, will actually help the 48 tow back up to the back of that Ford Kevin Harvick. That's what keeps the cars so close in proximity.
Especially with 2 cars side by side. Kevin Harvick, Alex Bowman side by side. Jimmy running these guys down quickly down the back straightaway as that side by side battle between them 2 guys has slowed them down. Yes. So there you see it. Jimmy's driving right up to him. Now you want to keep that momentum going. Jimmy's got some momentum up on the 4 car. He wants to try to do something with this momentum. See, he doesn't stay behind him. If he stays behind him, he's going to push the 4. He doesn't want to help the 4. He doesn't want to hurt his own momentum. Oh, man. Oh, boy. Oh, wow. So drive down to the bottom of the corner, but there's no grip. And he chases the race car, and he's going to lose the spot to the 18 Kyle Busch.
And this is why drivers get so frustrated. Man, like, I just got there. How did the 18 get past me?
And we talked about the Ryan Blaney, Jimmy Johnson. If you weren't around for last week's race, there was a war of words between the 2 drivers because of what took place on track. Maybe a little respect lost, or maybe not enough respect between the 2 drivers. So they discussed it after the incident that took place, and here's what either one had to say.
I didn't hear any form of sympathy from him following the race, and that's why I went there. You know, like, what the hell happened? What went on? And to leave that conversation with no remorse, it's like, all right, he meant to do that. So I have no other way to think than that.
You know, I raced Junior with a lot of respect. I stood there and let him chew my ass out for 2 minutes or whatever it was, and was very respectful and gave my side of the story. And then for him to say what he said after we got done talking, that pretty much solidified that, you know, that respect has dwindled down a lot. And obviously that respect doesn't go both ways. It showed me he has no respect for me.
I have learned more about Ryan's point of view through reading articles than I have from out of his mouth. And that part bothers me. It's pretty sad. When I went to talk to him after the race, at some point he said he felt bad, but I never heard, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Nothing that would make me think that that he didn't care if it happened. So, you know, that aspect only confirmed the way I felt in the car. So, you know, I thought I would get a call from him during the week, just the friendship that we've had, the amount of respect that I thought we had for one another, and I didn't.
So Ryan Blaney adamant that his viewpoint is correct. Jimmy Johnson adamant that his viewpoint is correct. And you guys mentioned it, as fate would have it, their motorhomes beside each other here at Michigan. They have still not chatted after their post-race chat at Watkins Glen. And we had Jimmy on NASCAR America Fan Friday yesterday, and he said, you know what? We're simply going to agree to disagree. We're never going to agree on what happened. I don't know when we'll talk, but I have no desire to go talk to him. He obviously has no desire to come chat with me. So sort of at a stalemate, if you will, between Ryan Blaney and Jimmy Johnson Jr. I'm wondering if you've ever had this sort of situation where with another driver where you just said, you know what, we're not going to agree. And I don't know when we'll chat. Maybe we'll never chat, but we're not going to agree on what happened in that particular race.
Yeah, absolutely. There's several drivers that you'll have that experience with throughout your career, and you'll likely continue that sort of relationship throughout. This may be this may be the way it's going to be between these two guys for the rest of at least Jimmy's career, which is unfortunate, to be honest with you. I know both these guys. Jimmy's an amazing guy. Brian's an amazing guy. They're good people, and it's weird to see two good guys not get along. But I mean, that's what racing does, that to you, man. You'll have some of the best friends, but man, you're going to run into each other on the racetrack, and you're going to disagree. You're going to be upset. You're not going to talk. I just had Dave Marcus on the show, on the podcast this past week, talk about an incident with him and Dad at Martinsville, where Dad didn't talk to him for 2 months, and then walked up, put his arm around him one day, and said, "Hey, I had that coming at Martinsville when you ducked me." You know, so they'll probably be hard-headed about it. But eventually I think they'll come around. But, you know, for us viewers, fans, what we saw last week was amazing. The dialogue this week is amazing. If it continues and they battle and they rub and beat and bang on each other, it'll be great.
Junior, I remember it took you retiring to talk to Kyle Busch because it was on your download before you guys discussed the whole Richmond issue. You had to retire before you guys had that communication.
You're right. Me and Kyle were not going to be cordial or communicate a whole lot as competitors.
He used the word amazing a couple times. You know who's amazing?
Who?
Before Kevin Harvick by a lot.
5-lap average. Look at this. Kevin Harvick, 1 mile an hour faster than anybody else.
What the hell did the 22 just do right there? Get this guy's problem. I'm gonna beat his ass.
I need to wreck more people.
I've got enough by that. I will push him off the deck. What an idiot. Every single lap, he's got to be an idiot. Come on.
I was supposed to fly home with him, and now I'm looking for a plane ride. So that's Kyle. He's like, that's, he won't even wait.
All season long, it has been that way. Difference of opinion on the racetrack and a war of words that have taken place.
To defend Kyle Busch, I'd have left Kurt, too. Just so we're clear.
He did win. We want to go on the clock. Let's start off with Kevin Harvick, Steve.
Well, let's start with the guy who has the absolute best car in Michigan. It was a slow start to 2019 for Kevin Harvick. After a great few years at Stewart-Haas Racing, it took all the way to New Hampshire just a few weeks ago to go to victory lane. They're looking for that second win of 2019, and if timing and scoring tells me anything, they are currently the favorite to win here in Michigan.
Joe Logano dominated this race earlier this year, but seems like his teammates, if not the rest of the field, have came here with a different approach that might bring some competition to this 22 car. There you see him up there at the PJ1 trying it out. I'm real surprised. Didn't think I'd see a lot of guys up there this early.
And the 20 of Eric Jones still searching for a win here in 2019. All of his Joe Gibbs Racing teammates have been to victory lane multiple times. So a lot of pressure on Eric Jones, but he seems to be rising to that pressure as he has 4 top 5s in a row, currently 13th in the playoff picture.
Oh, I like it. I'm going to use your extra time for the three of us and Dylan, because there's a lot to talk about. Had such a great car yesterday, and qualifying the time absolutely was disallowed. He will start at the back, but you see 4 career top 10 finishes here at Michigan. He's looking for something to happen. This RCR team in this 3 car has just been a little off all season long. Maybe starting at the back will be a good luck charm in the Irish Hills.
Got the 88 Alex Bowman. Got a win this year at Chicago. We were there. It was a great race, but since then, not quite the success that they hoped they would have. You know, you think wins would start to develop more consistency, 1 top 10. There you see it in the last 7 races. They got great speed this weekend, though, hoping for another result that will equal a win.
a racetrack that Kyle Larson likes to come back to. 3 wins of his 5 career wins have happened right here at this racetrack. An all-star win earlier this year. At the time, he thought, hey, that gets me in the playoffs, right? Well, no, it doesn't get you in the playoffs. But Kyle Larson continues to fight. He's not going to be able to be competitive in the Knoxville Nationals, which is the one thing on his bucket list that he wanted to check off.
Well, the 10 of Eric Almirola has not had a top 10 finish since July. That was 4 races ago. A team at Stewart-Haas Racing looking to rebound while Kevin Harvick has found his way to victory lane. This 10 has yet to do it. Average finishes outside the top 10. You see it 13.3. Currently pretty decent inside the playoffs at plus 96, but looking for a little more success.
Great year for Denny Hamlin, 3 wins, but he's not been that great at Michigan over the last several trips. Finished outside the top 10 in 3 of the last 4. Looking for an opportunity to try to turn things around, and Toyotas don't qualify that well, but I have to think that those cars are suited to race really well tomorrow. See how Denny's crew gets that thing going for him.
Steve, you talked about how great the 4 car is. Well, Brad Keselowski was great in practice yesterday, getting ready for qualifying, but the 2 will start up front. He has never won at Michigan, so he's going to lead the field to the green flag tomorrow. Can he finish in front of the field and finally get that checkered flag here in his home state?
Chris Buescher in the 37. He was on NASCAR America Fan Friday yesterday with Jeff Burton out amongst the fans talking about his fun and excitement at the short tracks. An ARCA winner just up the street at Berlin, Michigan. He has that 1 Cup Series win. It came at Pocono. Still looking for his 2nd win. Trying to get JTG Doherty in the 37 car back to victory lane.
Well, I noticed that Steve took it all the way down to 0 every single time. Actually went into a couple other guys' time there. So on the clock, you got your words.
Lot to say.
Driver! NASCAR lights up Las Vegas.
Start your engine!
For the South Point 400 night race weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Night moves.
Spinning down to the bottom of the racetrack.
Nightmare.
Got a car going sideways here.
And maximum speed night terror.
Everybody going
For NASCAR's fastest night race.
trying to write another piece of history.
At America's Racing Showplace.
Next week, the FedEx Cup playoffs will head to Medina Country Club for the BMW Championship, which will begin Thursday morning on PGA Tour Live, 2:30 on Golf Channel, and then continues next Saturday on NBC. Tiger Woods actually withdrew from the tournament this weekend. He is scheduled to play next weekend. Has to get back into the top 30 if he wants to qualify for the Tour Championship, which will be at Westlake.
They're in their playoffs. It's that time of the year for the golfers in their playoffs.
Marty.
You've seen Denny Hamlin out there on the racetrack. He's described his car as darty, but look at that race we have going on the left-hand side. But I want to show you what the team watches. Not only do they watch our live broadcast, but Steve, check that out. They're watching live what we would call SMT data from the racetrack. They're seeing it as Denny's going around the track. It's focused on, see that green line where Denny is on the racetrack. So how important of a tool has that become to race teams to watch that live SMT data, which they then hand to Denny when he gets into the garage area?
Yeah, so while it's entertaining the crew and they get to see their car and all the other cars on the racetrack, the real value is to the driver. The driver can not only see the line around the racetrack, but all the driver inputs. So here at Michigan yesterday, they would have seen wide open throttle. I think they would be looking more concerned at the line, how big of a lap they're running, how much of track they're using on corner exit. But today, Dale, I do think drivers are going to look at, are they lifting at all? Are they getting out of the gas? And look at this right here. Talking about a squeeze move. 11 Hamlin. Man, good thing Daniel Suarez's car wasn't about a foot longer, or we'd have had a major wreck on the front stretch.
Finding an opportunity and taking advantage of it. Denny Hamlin right there. And you've got to do those types of things to learn what your car will do.
Well, you have two choices. You can either take that run or you can lift. And if you lift or touch the brakes, I mean, today it's only practice, but you're going to lose a ton of spots.
And once again, the 48 and the 12 find themselves next to each other on the racetrack. And they're trying to be as far apart from each other as they can be.
Yeah, you got cars 2 and 3 wide. Jimmy Johnson getting out of this back, either trying to go to the back or trying to come to the garage. Makes it a little difficult for a couple of these guys.
2 cars shoving you. He's in line. Still outside.
A little push there.
2 car popping up. 42 loses the car a little bit. Slides up in front of Jones. Jones has to lift off the throttle just a bit as his car gets tight because of that. No help for Kurt Busch on the bottom there. He's going to get trained on the outside.
Well, we talked at the beginning of this practice, what was the goal and what were you going to learn? And what I've seen so far is that track temp doesn't matter as much as you have to go out there, you have to take risk. You have to put your car in the pack. This is something they've learned over the course of the year, right? How do you even approach practice? This is different than in years past. And what I see is you just can't enter the race. You can't go run by yourself and then think you're going to be fine when you enter the race.
A little over 7 minutes to go, and this is how tight it's getting in practice. That's right. This is practice. 4.5 minutes remain in this first practice of Saturday morning for the Monster Energy Cup Series. You see all the Monster Energy crew there working very closely at the monitors and what Kurt Busch is doing out on the track today. Make sure to join us on the sports app for final practice at 11:30, as well as Xfinity Series qualifying from Mid-Ohio, both on the NBC Sports app. Then at 3 o'clock on NBCSN, it's Xfinity Series racing from Mid-Ohio, followed by Lucas Oil Motocross Series from Unadilla. That Cup final practice, make sure to send questions in. Use social media, Twitter, whatever you want to use there, but hashtag NASCAR fan practice, and we will be answering those questions during that 1-hour practice session. Again, time winding down here, under 4 minutes to go, and on the left side of your screen you're going to see the 5-lap average. We always like to look at the averages as we get ready and closer to the race. Those of you that are involved in the fantasy racing, you can tell just how your driver is comparing to the others based upon the 5-lap average, 10-lap average. We'll give you both of those so you can look at more of a race type of setting and how they're doing. As Steve mentioned before, Harvick has been dominant compared to everyone else.
Yeah, no, Harvick's car, 5-10 lap, just watching him out the window, working through traffic. He seems like when he catches a car, he has a pretty good plan. He can work his way around it. His car seems to lead. It seems to be good in traffic. The 18 of Kyle Busch you see right here kind of enters the middle. Oof.
Yeah,
Almirola got loose at the bottom there. That's crazy.
I was watching Kyle Busch and Ryan Newman here. They had a little bit of a moment off the exit of turn 2 a couple laps ago where Kyle had to come all the way out of gas. Look at Newman. When Kyle crossed the nose of that 6 car, that 6 car lost all the front downforce, shot, had to lift off the gas, went up the racetrack. 2-car to Keselowski goes inside. That's the tough part. You go in the corner and a guy's on your high side in front of you. It crosses across the front of your car. Even 2-3 car lengths out in front of you can totally take all the air away from your car. Big surprise for the drivers when that happens. Now, if I was a driver further back, maybe where Kurt Busch is, Larson, that's when I would try the PJ1. 10th, 15th car in line in a draft. That's when I would go up there and run in that PJ1 and see if, man, can I run more throttle up here?
Do you enter in it?
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to enter all the way up top?
When you run the high side, it works the better the higher you enter. You don't, the higher you can enter for the top, the better that's going to work for you. What you want to try to do is enter high, see how he goes in high.
Mm-hmm.
If you can go up there and run more throttle, maybe you give up a little feet, a little distance, but now you're in the gas, carrying more speed. You're a couple more miles an hour off the corner, down the next straightaway.
He's trying to clear Daniel Hemrick there.
Well, this right here, you see Austin Dillon and his brother Ty Dillon entering turn 1 right here. Ty is the trailing car, and he gets right up on the left rear quarter panel of the 3 of Austin. Doesn't make contact, but the air alone seems to lose the back of that 3 car up the racetrack, and then you see how it works, right? When you go up the racetrack out of the gas, multiple cars go by.
So far, what I've seen in this practice is, and this was all guess work here. We saw the 22 dominate this race early this year. Everybody comes here maybe a little more trimmed out. all these guys are learning in this practice that maybe it's a lot harder maybe to pass on the low side, to pull low and go underneath the guy. We saw it earlier in practice, guys trying to go low and losing the back of their cars, losing grip in their cars, not being able to maintain that bottom groove. Maybe that high side becomes an option, a better option in the race. If you can get to a guy's right rear quarter panel without him coming up on the straightaway and blocking that move, maybe that top groove or getting to the outside of guys is what we might see in the race. Like the 43 right here. He can get to that right rear quarter panel, stay there. That 22 is never going to get by him. Now the 22 is going to lose the spot as the 9 fills the hole.
What we just saw there out of the 43, Bubba Wallace, he dove to the bottom of the racetrack. It looked like he was trying to do a slide job on Chase Elliott when he went into the turn. And then his momentum slowed a little bit, but he had more momentum than the 22 of Joey Logano. Is that the way you're going to see passes made here at Michigan?
Well, right now, Joey's getting a push from the 9. See if he dives to the inside as he creates a run. Didn't get quite enough of a push at the end of this practice. But I think it's just going to be, if they all came in the direction that the 22 car was from his dominant run earlier this year, it's going to be a little tougher for those guys. It's going to be a little tougher for those guys to work that bottom underneath people.
What I was impressed both with is the 43 got to the outside of the 22 and the 9 was pushing. But the 22 of Joey Logano, he side drafted and kept his position down the backstretch.
And he sacrificed himself. Like, he didn't side draft the quarter panel. They were side by side, equally almost. And you sacrifice yourself a little bit, but at least you hold that car on the right side in position. Hardy.
Well, so all the speed charts show that Kevin Harvick is the guy with the fastest car in this practice session. Let's see if you feel the same way behind the wheel. Did you feel you had the best car in this session?
Mobile 1 Ford was fast. You know, I think it's, you know, the track position still trumps the speed in the cars just because you have to position yourself correctly. So, you know, in the swarm, you kind of have to just maintain and try to not put yourself in a bad position to lose a bunch of spots. And once they get singled out, you can start to use the speed of the car to really navigate them one by one. So it's definitely an interesting practice. I wish that PJ1 was a little further down. We'd already have that third groove run in. I see the 42 and the 6 and a couple cars up there running in. We really need that groove to be there tomorrow to give everybody 3 choices instead of 2, because if you only have 2, the guy can mirror drive you in the front and then they push up off the corner. So it would be nice. It's better than I thought it was going to be already, and I think after the truck race today we'll really get an idea of where that groove is. But it looks like right now it needs to come down another 3 or 4 feet.
There you go, Junior. Another guy voting. Everyone should go run the PJ1. Maybe in that final practice we'll get everybody up there.
Spray it lower. I like Kevin Harvick's opinion. Spray it a few feet lower.
Yeah, I think when we all got here, or when we saw earlier this week on social media where it was, everyone's opinion was it's too high. So I think it's still going to be an option, but if it were half a groove lower, they would already be using it.
And you heard what he said, in the swarm. You know, he knows he has a good car, but he put it out there. Track position's got to matter. You know, as a crew chief, you're going to have a sharp pencil. No matter how good your car is, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to put 4 tires on a drive back to the front. There's no guarantees. You're going to have to fight to keep your car at the front.
Yeah, every position on the track, very important, whether you gain it on the track or on pit road. So strategy will be coming into play. Make sure to join us for final practice, which will take place on the NBC Sports app. Again, hashtag NASCAR fan practice, and you can be a part of that show. And then also Xfinity Series qualifying for Mid-Ohio on the Sports app. NBCSN has the race from Mid-Ohio at 3 o'clock.